thrown out by the different members to the committee. We have 4 of those. I think I sent those to you by email, so we'll look forward to discussing those. And then the plan would be that by the time we leave here today, we would come up with a set of recommendations that we would make for changes or improvements to HB 65, and then the bill will then be in play at Judiciary Non-Civil Committee. So that's kind of the game plan today. So that's where we are. So today, our first testimony we're going to have is from a physician, a pediatrician from Augusta, Dr. Paige Drew. Dr. Drew, if you want to come on, step on up there, and to the members of the committee, I thought Ms. Drew's testimony might be particularly relevant in light of the fact that that really the only voiced opposition from the hearing last week was from the Academy Association of Pediatricians. I may not be saying that right, Dr. Drew. You may can help me too, but
American Academy of Pediatrics.
Yep, and who voiced opposition to the inclusion of autism into the bill just because of the lack of data and lack of clinical trials. So I thought it might be prudent for us to hear from a Georgia pediatrician who may have a different opinion. And so, Dr. Drew, we welcome you. Glad to have you here. I know it's difficult and probably money out of your pocket to be here today. So,
I'm happy to be here.
So welcome to the committee. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, who you are,
Okay.
your status as a physician, and then tell us a little bit about your story of involvement with medical cannabis oil for autism.
Okay, just in case anybody Googles me, my actual practice name, most people call me Paige Drew. That's my married name, but it's Dr. Paige Ward. And I'm
How would you like for us to refer to you, Dr. Ward or Dr.
Paige.
Okay, Paige. Okay.
Mom, Paige,
okay,
you know.
okay.
And so, but anyway, I'm a pediatrician in Augusta, Georgia. I went to medical school at University of Louisville Medical School, graduated with honors, ended up in Georgia after my first husband, matched in orthopedic residency there, divorced and remarried because of difficulties with our autistic child, which is why I have a married Paige Drew. That's actually my second marriage name. Kind of love being a pediatrician, and now I am over about 40 physicians at a satellite clinic called West Wheeler, which is a satellite of Augusta University. And so I practice about 3 to 4 days a week, and over the other 40 physicians, which are all specialties, the rest of the time. I say that I'm a Christian, so I don't like telling you all my background, but I say that so you know that I didn't finish last in my medical school class. I'm fairly conservative, and so for me to be here is to let you know how strongly and passionately I feel about medical cannabis. About, and excuse the tears if you see them, about 17 years ago, my first husband and I had our first child, and it was evident after about 9 to 10 months something was wrong. I was in medical school, went on to residency by the time he was 3 to 4. With all the difficulties, the behaviors, everything was wrong. He was diagnosed with autism, is severely delayed in a wheelchair also. And how rough that was, we ended up divorcing, and his dad left and comes to see him once a year now. I remarried, and his second dad we are now separated from because of the difficulties with his behavior. I say that not to share a bunch of personal information, but just to tell you how difficult life is with an autistic child. In the past 4 to 5 years, you see and you'll hear from the Academy. Those are all my friends, by the way. I am a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I know all those people, and I actually was on a legislative call with them about a week ago, and their eyes were very opened because you can imagine I'm sitting here today because my son does get medical cannabis to help control his behaviors. And it was very eye-opening to them to know someone so well that son actually gets medical cannabis, and they know me. And they know I wouldn't do something that would hurt my child, nor do something that I feel was outside of any kind of medical realm. About 2 to 3 years ago, Cannon is 17 now, he started hitting. He's 200 pounds and 5'11". He's a very good boy. But when he gets upset with his autistic rages, he hits, he screams, he leaves bruises, mostly on me. And we put him on just to be able to work. I'm a single mom at this time and separated, still am, from my husband. And just to be able to work, he's on a ridiculous amount of medication. We're talking medication like Ativan, Valium, Risperdal, which is an antipsychotic, Seroquel, things that child psychiatrists just throw at you so you can have a child who doesn't hit, scream, claw, and damage himself and other people. About 7 months ago, it had gotten so bad that I have a very good friend who's been my nanny for 4 years, and she said, I just can't do it anymore. Which, at that point, left me with the choice of quitting pediatrics, still with my $100,000 loan from putting myself through medical school for my blue-collar family who couldn't help me, and going on Medicaid and staying at home with my child. My story is not unique. All these parents that you see behind me, the parents that you see sitting in the chambers day after day, this is their story too. Cannon, about 6 months ago, when I was trying to decide if I was going to have to give up my career and stay at home with him because no one could keep him, left bruises on my nanny, bruises on me, like I'd said, was in the shower, and now he can say a few words. And we go to church all the time, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. It's the only thing I know to give him during his peaceful moments that he can look forward to is going to heaven. And we were in the shower. We have a great big shower. I was in the shower with him. We have this great big shower that I have to roll him into. And I was bathing him. He is very handicapped and very disabled in his wheelchair. And he said, Mommy, am I going to feel this way in heaven? And I said, no, baby, your body's going to be perfect. And he said, can I go now? So that's a 17-year-old with a 4 to 5-year-old mentality basically wanting to commit suicide, right? That's what someone of an adult intelligence would feel. And at that moment, I got on the web and I started looking and I said, this is it. No, I have nothing. I've researched. I'm a smart pediatrician. I'm a smart doctor. I went to a great medical school, and I have nothing, absolutely nothing to help this child. I can't even knock him out and help him. I can't even make him sleep all day and help him. And nobody wants to see their child do that anyway. And I came across medical cannabis. And I have to tell you, I researched everything. You'll walk into my home and see Bibles and see a book of medical cannabis sitting right next to it. I researched everything about it. Side effects, none. How as a pediatrician, how do I even know how much to give? Well, there's literature out there. Unfortunately, most of it's overseas because of our government, which I'm glad to be sitting in front of you guys today, as far as to be able to have state government and just not all federal. And I started Cannon through a lot of really amazing people that I got in contact with. I started Cannon on medical cannabis, a ratio of cannabidiol and THC. And I found the perfect amount for him by just judging his behaviors. And I'm happy to say now that I still practice. My nanny is still with me. And his hitting behaviors have stopped. His bruising me has stopped. Him bruising my nanny has stopped. And my son, he requires his oil. We call it cannabis oil. We just call it his nervous medicine. And he will tell me he'll say, Mommy, is my medicine running out? Because he knows that feeling that starts to creep over him again. He's not drugged. He's not high. He's not asleep. He's my boy. And when I saw that, and of course I read more, when I went to medical school, the endocannabinoid system in your brain wasn't even discovered. I'm only 43. It wasn't even discovered. We didn't even know that there was a cannabinoid system in our brains that's actually named after phytocannabinoids, which are in the cannabis plant. We didn't even know. There's so much therapeutic benefit. And it's so sad, and I don't pretend to know higher up and federally why things have taken place the way that they have. You guys know more about that than I do, about political things. But I do know that that's why the state exists, and the state government exists, that when the federal government is not making the right decision, they're not pushing the right agenda, that we exist to support our constituents and do the right thing for our patients. I will say on that legislative committee, physicians are scientists at heart. We're taught that you don't recommend something unless you have what we call double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials, which means, you know, you have two different groups and one gets a placebo and one gets the medicine. And because of the restriction in the states, not the restriction overseas, where there's tons of literature supporting medical cannabis, we do not, as a group, support things unless we have double-blinded placebo controls. You can have 1,000 case reports of, like, my son, the children behind me, but that doesn't matter. And that's why a lot of times you'll hear these groups come out, because they really don't have a choice but to go against until a lot of the research is there. State research, not research overseas. When I talked with them in the actual meeting that I had about a week ago, so many of those physicians started talking and saying, we wish, how in the world, we wish we could do this. We wish, you're right, we have all these patients with these severe behaviors and we want to help them. But how do we do that? I'm like, I'm telling you how to do it. But that's the problem that they're up against. Keep in mind, too, that the American Academy of Pediatrics does not go out and poll all of its members. I'm a member. They form a committee, and then they speak for their members. So it's not like they're going out and taking a vote, if that makes sense. So I just need to put that out there, too.
Okay. Paige, thank you for your testimony. I know it's personal and tough to probably share sometimes, so thank you for doing that. Would you be willing to take some questions from the committee if there are any?
I'd be happy to.
Committee, if you do have, I'll ask a couple of things. Well, let's see. All right. When you had the discussion with on your legislative call with the pediatric group, I mean, was there any other? I mean, was it general consensus that they were going to oppose adding autism to this, or were there other folks that were you the only one? I mean,
as far as no. I mean, there were people asking, saying, well, you know, I really felt like on that call, and I can't tell you the names because we were all on a phone call and people were speaking up. But no, there were people on there that were on the committee, not necessarily the officers, but that really felt like this is something that we should look into. This is something that we should not oppose. There were definitely a lot of people saying maybe we should back away and not be pro or against. That way we don't put ourselves out there. Right. And I really felt like now towards the end of the conversation, what the chair said, everyone send me kind of an email about their written thoughts. And then it's up to the officers then to decide how they're going to present that, which ultimately is also going to be what the National American Academy of Pediatrics is going to recommend.
Okay.
And so this was just the Georgia chapter.
Okay, thank you. Representative Gravely, is that your number? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Page.
Yeah, that's good.
Representative Gravely, hang on a second. We're going to see if we can get this, try it now. We're just going to keep going. Just speak loud. Speak loud if you can.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I'm speaking from a committee perspective, I've supported this measure, great support of this measure, but it's greatly encouraging to hear you talk as a pediatrician about your son. And I had heard several stories, obviously from others in the crowd, dealing with autism. And it wasn't until my own nephew was born 3 years ago. I'm sorry, 5 years ago now, and has gone out of the country to seek treatment, and has returned safely, and thank God for that. But seeing it up close in my own family now, and then a constituent that I've worked with that I got really close to over this last year, his son had turned, and everything had been wonderful, but grew up with an autistic child. His son was autistic. 17, these were his words to me. It was like a switch went off. It became violent. And so much so that his son can't live with him, and it breaks
Mhm.
But not only was I there to tour this facility and look at this facility, but I watched my two friends, constituents now, and you could see the pain. And
Mhm.
they get to go out of state to visit their son now.
That's right.
And the topic of our conversation was, if we could treat with medical cannabis, maybe his behavior would be different. Maybe he wouldn't have to be in this comatose state.
That's exactly right.
Times of the day. He could function.
Mhm.
And so when I sit here and hear you talk as a board certified pediatrician, someone in the medical profession treating their own child,
Mhm.
that just, to me, as a committee, the evidence and the data that we're looking for is right before our eyes. I mean, the test of the life that you're living
Mhm.
is data for us daily, what you're going through. So I appreciate and commend you being here to tell your story. God bless you
Thank you.
for what you're doing and for the bravery you're showing and having tried everything else. Here's something to treat my son. And a lot of times we say, well, I started using medical cannabis. Like it's, and that's kind of, I guess, what we've just learned to call it. I've just started saying we switched from one medicine to another.
That's right.
That's what it is. It's a medicine. Correct?
That's right. And it's much less, it's actually a plant.
Yeah.
It's a plant. And
Which all the other ones are derived from as well.
that's right. It's as, I've read every bit of overseas literature, and I'm talking Israel. They're on their game.
Studies coming out of it.
They are on their game with studies with autism and just cannabis. And I'm not sure what's happened in our country, but I will tell you that I think we're very blessed to have state legislatures that can listen to constituents, can certainly make up their own minds about, what their voters want and about what's best for our children and anyone, even our adults, suffering from some type of disease that even our regular pharmaceuticals can't help or are more dangerous. The litany and everything that Cannon was on was so much more dangerous. And did I choose that every day? Absolutely, because there was no other choice. That's what the families are at. They have to choose these horrid combination of medications because there is nothing else. And so, I read all about medical cannabis, and I said, are you kidding me? Of course I'm going to try that. Am I going to try it illegally? Yeah, I'm going to. That's my child. Would you do it for your children? I'd say yes, if you were sitting where I was. Would you do it for your wife? Yes. Would you do it for yourself? Yes. We don't say, Representative Peake, we don't say, you're going to have a surgery tomorrow, but I'm really scared that you're going to get addicted to pain medicine because we have a huge opioid, which isn't exact the same when I'm discussing, but we don't say, so I might be worried that you might get addicted, so sorry, you're going to have to go through that surgery without pain medicine. Good luck. Right? We don't do that. And we're worried about, a lot of the other social issues with maybe, we're not talking about legalizing cannabis. We're talking about medical cannabis. So we're talking about a plant that can help so many people. And so after all my research, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It makes me think after I talked with the legislative committee, people just don't know. They don't understand unless they've had somebody that they're either close to that's had a severe illness or autism with severe behaviors and even not severe behaviors. The thing is when you truly have autism, you have severe behaviors. That's not honest. Right now they put a lot of people under mild autism, and some of these children are in school and doing fine and maybe have some social issues. Those aren't the kids that are the parents that are going to seek out medical cannabis. It's going to be your moderate to severe autistic children that have behaviors that are uncontrollable.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Follow up. Mm-hmm.
You made an interesting point. A lot of people look, we just don't know. I'll say this. Over the last 3 years, and I'm going to respect the word and the conversation of many people in my home county.
Yes.
And in the district that I represent,
Yes.
which is Paulding and Douglas County, who have called me, and I would say there's a large portion that know, because the calls that I've got, the private conversations that I've had from pillars in our community who have said, Mike, I don't want to be public about this, but I'm going to support you. When my mom was going through cancer.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Uncle so-and-so, when, we we saw a difference. It worked. And I was amazed at the phone calls that were coming in, the silent support that's out there. And now coming to the forefront, saying, recognizing, getting out from under this taboo that we've all been sold a bill of goods on that. And I'm for medical, I'm not
Right.
for the recreational
Right.
use. But the idea that folks have been treating with this for many years, and I even had one, grandma would kill us if we ever told her. She had passed on, but Micah, for the last 6 months of her life, she wasn't impacted. We were able to visit, we were able to enjoy her presence, her company, and we saw her appetite had returned. And so these are, if I was getting calls like this over, and maybe some of you have gotten calls like that as well, but they do know. And now, with my own family, as I mentioned, my nephew, asking these questions and say, well, maybe this would help. And you're right. So this is my family we're talking about.
That's right.
So
Thanks, Reverend Gravely. Any other questions from the members committee? Representative Baskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Drew Ward, Page, today.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. One, you mentioned the 4 medications that your son was on. I missed the 4th one. They were Ativan, Valium, Risperdal.
Okay, so it's probably listed 15 or 20. So it's Risperdal, Ativan, Valium, sertraline, Remeron. Hold on, I try to block it out of my mind. Remeron, he was on Atarax, which isn't a horribly addictive drug, but Atarax. Seroquel. And the big one, he was on 3 or 4 different other ones, but the other big one was Abilify.
Were you able to taper him off of those? Is he still on some or all of them?
He has been taken off, so he's still on Atarax, and that's mainly because he also has some allergies. That's an antihistamine. It also helps with anxiety, but allergies too. But he is off all of those medicines except a pinch of Risperdal. He was on 1 milligram at one point, and now he's on 0.125 milligrams. You have to wean off Risperdal really slowly. It's got lots of bad side effects, which parents know, but when you weigh the benefits and risk, and so he's almost all the way off.
Okay, thank you. When you did your review and ended up finding more resources internationally, and you mentioned Israel, did you find any international or foreign medical studies that documented good results with treatment of autism for pediatric patients?
Yes, so right now, the only double-blinded placebo-controlled trial is currently going on in Israel. And it so far has promising results, but of course those aren't published yet. There are numerous case reports about, like for instance, about my son. And so a lot of times in the scientific community, we do use case reports, when we're trying to make medical decisions. I don't know if you have a medical background, but that is the only right now double-blind placebo-controlled trial. And so actually the Georgia chapter was very interested in wanting to know when those results are going to be out. And that's a 6-month study, so it should be late spring, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And one final question. You mentioned your son has autism. You say severe autism. Is right now the proposed statute would cover autism spectrum disorder. Is it possible as a pediatrician to gauge the severity of autism, and is there any place to draw the line between people that we think could or should be treated and those where it's so mild that you wouldn't recommend it?
Yes, so there's definitely, when you look at your ICD-10, I don't know if you're familiar with that, like criteria that we bill under, autism is just autism. There is no mild, moderate, severe. But clearly in the medical community, it's obvious. You have your mild autistic children who go to school, who maybe have some social issues. You have your moderate, who have lots more sensory issues, have a very hard time with behaviors. And then you have your severe, which, those are usually the people that the common person would recognize walking down the street. And so as a medical person, yes, you very well know which one, what category that would fit in.
But does a person, perhaps your son, change from one to another over time? At one point, would a pediatrician, which would have been you, have characterized him or diagnosed him as moderate, and then later when he turned age 17, he then became, the diagnosis would be severe?
No, he would have always been in the severe category because although he wasn't hitting me, he would scream and tantrum on the floor for hours, which would be classified severe.
Of what percent of pediatric patients with an autism diagnosis would fall under the severe autism?
Since we don't have data to like be able to look and classify exactly, because when we pull an autism diagnosis, it fits under 399, which is basically just the whole autism category. But if you look at, it's about 1 in 88 to 1 in 100 children right now. Probably the degree of severe probably would be more like the 20-25%,
Of autistic children.
and moderate
Children with
probably,
autistic children.
and probably moderate would probably be about 50%. So I would say probably 50 to 60% of all autistic children, because you got to realize when you look, that's a lot of times what scares people too. You just say 1 in 88 children have autism. Does that mean all these kids are going to be on medical cannabis, right? And I understand that. You have to realize as pediatricians, we put people, this is sad, but we have to do this for insurance reasons. You don't get any services when you're over 3 being categorized as developmental delay. So if you fit under the autistic category, if you fit one of the 3 categories with language, social, if you fit under that, then you give the diagnosis of autism. That's why a lot of people think that we've had this complete rise in autism over the the past 20 years. Is that vaccines? Is that this? No, it's that we have to categorize a patient somewhere. It's not cerebral palsy. It's not just developmental delay. No, he fits all 3 criteria for autism, but a lot of those may be very mild. Those aren't the parents that are going to be coming to the physicians. That was the point I also made to the legislative committee. Those aren't the parents that are going to be coming to you. Those are the kids that are going to be functioning fairly well. Does that help? Okay.
That's a good question, Representative Beskin. I want to just piggyback off that a little bit, because the representative for the Pediatric Association said that basically 10,000 kids would now be eligible for this. You as a pediatrician, forget taking your child out for a moment.
Right.
You would not recommend this for your patients unless they were at a level that was either moderate or severe. Is that? Am I hearing you correct? Is that what
You're hearing me correct in that the more mildly autistic individuals that are doing very well, they're able to function in school, they're not having any other of what we consider autistic, the more severely autistic behaviors. They would want to do ABA therapy. They would want to do other things because you never start with medicine, right? You start with therapy, you start with integration, you start with these things. The children who need the medical cannabis, they've already done that. They've already tried that. That's mainstream, that's scientific. We know that works.
So are you concerned then that if autism was a qualifying condition, that all of a sudden we would have 10,000 kids taking medical cannabis oil, or is that a concern of yours at all as a pediatrician?
It's not, because I have a good relationship with my parents, and so they come to me and they say it'd be just like saying, and this is just an out there comparison, but like I go back to like pain medicines. Well, Dr. Ward, I just really want to calm him down, or say Valium. I just really want to calm him down. Can you prescribe like 100 milligrams of Valium today for him? No, I can't do that because I don't think it's in his best interest, right? But I will prescribe Valium for kids who are trying to get a procedure done who have severe autism that can't happen for. So as a physician, that doesn't bother me at all. And they're going to come to me and they're going to say, what do you think about this? That's my role as a physician, to tell them what I think.
Right. Okay.
Does that help?
Yep, it did. Any other questions for the committee? Just thank you for your testimony today. Let me just be very clear. So you, as a board-certified pediatrician, have no hesitation whatsoever in recommending medical cannabis oil as an option for not only your son, but for other patients that are under your care who have autism.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you
Thank
being here.
you.
Thank you for making the time being here in Augusta.
Thank you very much.
The members of the committee, there is also in your packet a letter from a Dr. Jill Dickerson. She was going to be here with us today as well. She's a board-certified pediatrician who was going to share her testimony, very similar to Dr. Page, as we'll call you. And so I hope you'll take a moment just to review that letter. I'm gonna just hit a couple of the highlights of her particular experience with one patient under her care, and just indulge me for just a minute. Abby is 6 years old with autism. She's a quite complicated young lady that I first met in May of 2014. She and her parents came to our office for a lab draw in preparation for up-and-coming appointment. It was a heartbreaking experience as she cried and bit herself and cried and kicked. Not a typical tantrum. She was literally raging. These rages would come in waves. On June 2014, I spoke with the mom for a phone appointment. We had to do this because she was not in an emotional state to tolerate being in the clinic that day. She had raged for 8 hours straight a few days before the call. These rage episodes consisted of screaming, biting her arms, or anything she could get her teeth on, including her parents, the dog, furniture, and herself. Abby was seeing a pediatric neurologist and a psychiatrist, both of whom had tried numerous medications to calm her without avail. Some of these medications included trazodone, Haldol, and Zoloft. Over the winter of 2014 and 15, Abby started whole plant cannabis oil with 15% THC. The results were striking. She was calmer with better eye contact and less rages. She cooperated with an entire office visit. February of 2015, without a rage or self-injurious behaviors. She was successfully weaned from all of her medications except the trazodone that helped her sleep. Despite the ups and downs of typical childhood illnesses of the next year, Abby continued to progress developmentally and socially. Her 5-year-old checkup on February 2016 showed her eating a wide variety of whole foods, not purees, sleeping well, and beginning to potty train. She was off all neurological prescriptions and thriving. This progress is continuing. Yes, she has a brain malformation, and yes, she has autism, but she now has a quality of life that was only a dream 3 years ago. The whole plant cannabis oil was a critical piece in her healing. This is from Jill Dickerson, a medical physician who's treating an autism patient. So, Dr. Page is not the only one who's treating autism patients and seeing positive results. Again, to the members of the committee, we can have some discussion about this if you want, but the intent was to show that while there may be an association that would be against adding and keeping autism on the bill, I think there's real-world evidence out there that maybe it is worth keeping. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. We had, sent you a note, we had 4 recommendations from last week to HB 65, and I want to just chat real briefly about the 4 recommendations. You also have a substitute bill in your packet. And what I'd like to do is not so much focus on the substitute bill, but on the 4 concepts of the recommendation. Because here's the posture of the committee. We technically cannot make amendments or changes to HB 65, since we are a working group. But we can make recommendations that to the author, and which is me, and I will strongly take those recommendations and in fact have incorporated them in a potential substitute that would go to the Judiciary Civil, non-civil committee next week. So let me just remind the committee of the recommendations. One was a reciprocal agreement with other states that would allow folks who come into our state who have a card issued in another state to legally possess medical cannabis oil that is allowed under Georgia law. Secondly, adding an additional definition to intractable pain that would include, and for which only medical treatment alternative is a prescription for opioid pain addiction. The attempt was to deal with the opioid epidemic and give this as an option to those who did not want to go down the path of a potential opioid addiction. Third one was require card holders that upon renewal of such registration on the card, they would be required to provide information to the Department of Public Health on treatment, side effects, and drug interactions. Since we are taking away the reporting requirements of doctors, we want to put the obligation back on the patients at the time of renewal to provide some information. This is relevant because most of the folks who have been on, the 1,300 people that are on the registry now, the first ones who will be renewing will be coming up this summer. And so, and then finally, we discussed and was recommended adding an allowance for the issuance of a card when a patient is in a hospice program. There's not a condition of hospice. So it would be so we're not adding a condition, but we would be adding a status that a card could be issued to someone who is in a hospice program. So those are the 4 recommendations that were presented last week. I'd like to discuss those if there are any discussions for or against. I'm not so much interested in the specific language. We'll leave that to the committee process that will be taken on this project next week in Judiciary Non-Civil. So, floor is open for comments for or against those 4 recommendations. Vice Chair Stovall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to those who testified even from last week and even today. And I would like to say I'm in support of those recommendations. I think that we heard the testimonies last week on some things that might have been missed in the original bill that you did that we're looking at now. So I would like to say I was in support of it, making sure those areas that you talked about were covered in here for a substitute bill.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from? What I'd like to do, if there are no other comments, and we'll just let you give you a minute just to review them too, but what I'd like to do is get, and what we will do in writing, is put a recommendation together to the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee that will include the recommendations that come out of this working group, and then incorporate them in a substitute bill as well too. And then again, like I said, we'll let the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee do its work of refining the language of the substitute bill. So if there's not any further questions or comments, and again, this is a little different procedure than we have in a normal committee. So what I'd like to do is ask, is there a unanimous consent from the committee on recommending these 4 additions to HB 65? I mean, if there's anyone who is opposed to that and would rather take them individually, we can do that. But what I'd like to ask first is, would it be the consent of this committee to make unanimous consent on all 4 recommendations? Is there anyone that is opposed to doing that and would rather see us only address maybe 3 or 1 or 2 or 3 of those? Okay, if there is not, I'm going to take an affirmative, and we'll just do that. All those that are in agreement of making all 4 recommendations to the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, that is the will of this group, and that's what we will do. And I thank you for your work and involvement on this particular bill, HB 65. Let's just talk about next steps too for the working group of this committee. We do have one more bill that's in front of us, H.R. 36, the constitutional amendment. We will not be debating that today. We probably will take that up probably within the next several weeks, and it's a whole nother bigger issue of looking at the cultivation issue of marijuana in our state for medicinal purposes. And to those in the public and those that are interested, we will be debating that over the next several weeks. Let me thank you to each of the members here for your input and your involvement on this very important issue that is affecting a lot of lives here in our state. And some of you I may see on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee here shortly, hopefully in the next week or so. And if there's no further comments, we're adjourned. Thank you.